what causes kids to feel down during the holidays, and how can we help prevent it? Let's break that down. I talked a bit in the last video about what the holiday blues are and where they come from, but let's really talk about some of the main triggers for that pressure that the brain gets under. The number one that happens over the holidays, and I have done several videos on this trying to explain why it isn't so important, but the number one factor that causes all of that pressure on the brain is disrupted routines. When children are used to something and there's a predictable pattern, it helps them feel safe and it helps them feel comfortable, and it gives their brain less to have to think about and predict. When those routines are disrupted, and over the holidays, they are disrupted in big ways. When those routines are disrupted, the child feels less safe because there's not a predictable and consistent pattern. Their brain is having to work harder. It's becoming under more pressure to figure things out and what's going on. Disrupted routines are a big trigger for the holiday blues. Another one is just overstimulation. During the holidays, kids are constantly going to things, doing things, seeing people, opening gifts, seeing lights, hearing music, tons of different things going on. And that stimulation over time has kept the brain under pressure for too long. And finally, it will say, I can't do any more. Just yesterday, I led a virtual training, and then I had a meeting, and then later, just about an hour after all of that, I had someone come over to my house to redo some electrical things to make my house more efficient. And it is this amazing program put on in Louisville, Kentucky by our gas and electric company called LG&E. They come out and they replaced all my light bulbs. Maybe you see that it's brighter here. They replaced all my light bulbs. They replaced sink things. It's a great program. I say that because what they were doing was very helpful. But about 20 minutes into my appointment, I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of this 90 minutes. This feels like I am just done. I don't have any more to give. I cannot talk anymore with this person who has come to help me with all of these things. My brain has been overstimulated for too long. I'm out of energy to give. And when you run out of that energy to give because your brain has been under pressure for too long, it can lead to those feelings of sadness, stress, and anxiety. Another one is just unmet holiday expectations. Sometimes kids have these grandiose ideas of what's going to happen and why it should happen that way and how it's going to go. And then they live through it and it's not quite what they thought it was going to be. Or maybe they've been scrolling on social media and they see that all their friends are doing all these things that seem so amazing and theirs just wasn't as much. And to them, it can lead to those feelings of sometimes embarrassment, sometimes disappointment, and sometimes sadness. That's not to say that you need to go above and beyond and do all these grandiose things and make everything huge and exciting and there can't be a moment of downtime or anything like that. It's just to say that when those expectations aren't met, sometimes children need to be able to discuss those feelings in a way that's developmentally appropriate for them. Another trigger that can happen for kids is that the holidays can remind children of loved ones who are no longer with us. And they may experience sadness or longing for those people in unexpected moments. When I was a child, my great-grandmother would always sit right next to me at our family Christmas. And every year I can remember she would unwrap the presents so that she could keep the wrapping paper. I'm telling you, you could have just given her folded up wrapping paper and said, this is your gift. Every time she would say, oh, this is just the most beautiful wrapping paper I've ever seen. And she would unfold it and then fold it back. She didn't want the tape to rip anything. And though it was so silly, it was a part of Christmas that I looked forward to, even though it was kind of funny. I just spent time sitting next to my great grandmother and helping her make sure that she could get all of that wrapping paper off those presents without causing any damage. And then she passed away. And that Christmas was different. Even when we were opening all of the amazing presents, and even when everybody was smiling and laughing, it was great. But I was also thinking, Grandma Bessie's not sitting next to me trying to save the wrapping paper. In those moments, sometimes it can bring on that sadness or that missing of a person in the times that seem like they should be the most happy. And there's also another thing that could cause these feelings, is that previous holidays may have been challenging for kids for all sorts of different reasons. And if they've had previous holidays that were difficult, kids may carry those feelings forward into the present. I worked at a residential psychiatric facility for 6 years when I was beginning my career in children's mental health. And in that facility, we noticed that around the holidays, there were many more extreme behaviors from the kids in our care. And people wondered why that was. But I was able to finally talk with my staff and say, well, think about the holidays they've had in the past. Their holidays were filled with some really intense situations, and situations beyond maybe what you are thinking of as a difficult past holiday for your child. But these children had experienced sometimes abuse, sometimes higher levels of substance use during their holidays, or just huge feelings of disappointment by coming back to school and everybody talking about how great their holiday was, and them having to either lie or think about how theirs was not that way at all. If holidays have been difficult in the past, it may be that children remember that and think of that as what the holidays are. When I was younger, I would get sick every year on my birthday and every year at Christmas. Every year. And it wasn't just a little sickness, it was a pretty big sickness, to the point where I would have to just not participate sometimes. Now, I told you I would sit with my grandma. It was typically with my immediate family that this would happen. And I would just feel sick, or it would be right after the holiday, and I would just get so sick, and it would just be terrible, and I hated it. And eventually I began to dread my birthday and Christmas, because all I could think about was, oh, here comes the sickness. I just had lunch with my mom and dad earlier today, and my mom said, every year at Christmas we get sick. And it's true. Every year at Christmas, they do get sick, and they fight through it, and, they make sure everybody's safe, and they don't have everybody around if they are really sick, but they get sick pretty much every year. If things like that happen for your child, they may think about that now, even though it was in the past. There's also things like financial stress that kids know about, or family stress, just from all these different family members being around. Sometimes that can seem like it's going to be great, but we know that family dynamics are very complicated, and those dynamics can lead to a lot of stress, that pressure on the brain, which can lead to more of those feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression. And it could be that they're just seeing others and having this social comparison that can lead to those difficult feelings. Those are the main triggers to this holiday blues, or the seasonal affective disorder, that you can think about. Now, the holiday blues are different than seasonal affective disorder. Seasonal affective disorder is an actual diagnosis that requires real criteria to be diagnosed with. The holiday blues are just some of those acting out behaviors because of sadness, anxiety, and stress. Those are the main triggers. And as you think about those things as the main triggers, you may be able to mitigate some of the difficulties by either preventing some of those triggers or preparing your child for some of those triggers. Maybe they don't like one of their cousins the most, and so you can say, hey, you are going to see that cousin, but if you decide that you just don't want to be around them anymore, just come and see me, and I'm happy to have you sit right next to me. You can talk with them about some of those things to alleviate some of that stress. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it. If you know someone navigating these challenges with their kids, even if that someone you know is you.